here. Okay, so
So
welcome.
you're an MD.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think medical doctors.
Welcome to Love, Flowers, and You with Jennifer Love in Los Angeles and Michelle Flowers in Chicago, and I'm Marina in Atlanta. Okay, so now I've scribbled all over my stuff. Okay. Welcome to Love, Flowers, and You with Jennifer Love in Los Angeles and Michelle Flowers in Chicago, and I'm Marina in Atlanta. Love and Flowers are physicians that want to share their knowledge with people who may not have the time or money to get advice from an expert. But while in their offices, they are doctors. For this podcast, they are your friends. So Jenna, let's talk about you and who you are and what your goals are for this podcast.
Well, my background in medicine, I have 3 board certifications: psychiatry, addiction psychiatry, and addiction medicine. So my sweet spot in medicine is really the overlap of psychiatric symptoms such as anxiety or depression, mood swings with substance use disorders. But I do a lot of therapy with my patients, and I just love the things that drive us. I'm always asking the question, why? I'm insanely curious. And so for me, when people come in, it's not really about problem solving. It's looking at what's the next layer behind that. And that's what I'm really excited to do with this podcast. Rather than sitting with patients and practicing medicine, what we get to do here, since we're not practicing medicine here, is we get to sit down and girl talk. Michelle and I talk frequently, and here we are, 2 physicians, and we just kind of break down things maybe a little bit differently than other people would. And so I think it's kind of fun, the idea of sitting down and talking with doctors about what they think about things, with the goal of being able to really get our topics from our listeners.
And Michelle, I know you don't want any more patients because your plate is full, but that's what's great about this podcast, is that people are going to be able to get advice from you that otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to speak to somebody as busy as you are. So tell us about you and what your goals are for the podcast.
I am a mother of 4. My youngest is 3 and oldest is 15. So I have 1 driving and 1 learning to read. And I am double board certified in adult psychiatry and child psychiatry. And I love what I do. For me, it's about putting the pieces of a puzzle together and making things clearer for people. And I think that if we share experiences with each other, we will have to solve fewer and fewer puzzles, and we can solve then bigger and bigger puzzles. And so I'm really looking forward to doing that on this podcast, having people call in and share the pieces that they have with us.
So people
You're so elegant.
People can either call, I can give them my number so they can call my number with any questions, and I can add and discuss. And my number is 404-520-2373. They can email us at loveflowersandYou@gmail.com. And then tell us about the website.
loveflowersandYou.com.
Okay, great. So that's the way people can interact with us and tell us the kind of things we want to discuss. But for this week, we've discussed that since the Oxford Dictionary decided the word of the year for 2018 was toxic, that maybe we could talk about toxic relationships, toxic work environments. And you had mentioned yesterday, Michelle, so talk about what happened to you this week that was toxic, but you said buzzkills. You called it buzzkills, how to deal with them.
Yeah, when I think of toxic people, I think of people who pop the happy bubble of people who are around them. And one experience I had recently was just being in a group fitness class, doing my thing, having a fantastic time with no shoes on, which is how I love to do it. And a woman came up to me and she said, "You're going to hurt your feet." And I was like, first of all, I had to come to, because out of my happy place where I was in, and I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "You're going to hurt your feet." And I was like, spent the next 20 minutes with thought bubbles racing, thinking, why? Why is it any of your business? And do you care? And could you see that I was happy? What is going on? So I'm just curious about people who, if they are even aware of the impact that they have on others. And I don't know, what are your thoughts, Jennifer? That's going to be hard for me.
It's going to be hard for both of us. Jennifer, yes. Have you ever met toxic people, or any toxic people in your life?
Have you ever met any?
No. No, I've never had any in my office. I've never met any. I've never heard about any. No. It's funny. I'm actually writing a book right now. It's a survival guide for contentious divorces. And I've spent a lot of time with people. Our divorce rate where I practice is over 70%.
Wow.
And I, as kind of one of the few addiction psychiatrists in my area, get a lot of people who are court ordered to me, and people who are doing evaluations who need another opinion on. And so I see inside of, kind of some of the most toxic of the toxic. So when we talk about toxic personalities, you've got someone who's telling Michelle, you're going to hurt your feet, like put your shoes on or do something different, then to the other end of the toxic spectrum, which is just completely like nuclear evil. So, this is kind of the world that I sit in every day from 8:30 to 6:30.
And in fact, I have a girlfriend who's going through a very contentious divorce. And that's one thing, like your experience, Michelle, when it's somebody at the gym and you can walk away from them. And some people are coming home to a toxic person. So what's your advice from both of you to somebody that's coming home to a toxic person every day who's, just upset about something and has to let the kids feel it and let the wife feel it, or the husband? Michelle, you want to start your insights?
I think they need to read Jennifer's book.
Okay, you're having the time. Jennifer's book is not published yet, but when she has published,
I don't know. If you don't have a really good reason for being in a toxic situation, my first advice is get out. What are you doing? Now, if circumstances are such that you have to remain in that situation, then always, I think it's important to reflect and say, what's my part in this? How did I create this situation? How am I giving up my power? And what have I done that's worked or come even close to working?
As I'm thinking, as I'm listening to you, Michelle, you said something interesting to me the other day, and when we were talking, and right now we're talking about toxic relationships, but sometimes the most toxic relationship that we have is our internal one, the one we have with ourselves. And one of the things that I adore Michelle for so many reasons, but one of the things is just how creative. And so, you're always talking about these thought bubbles that pop up. And, I wonder what that person's thought bubble would be. And, it's kind of, if I could read your mind now. And some of the most toxic thought bubbles in a lot of people's lives are their own, that's what a thought bubble is. It's your own internal thought. And some of the most toxic relationships aren't necessarily between two people. Oftentimes it's how we treat ourselves, how we think of ourselves. And I think it's really important to discuss, because people do their best at putting out such a good facade for other people. They have the perfect marriage, the perfect life, the perfect career, the perfect everything. And inside they beat themselves up over and over. They tell themselves, I'm a horrible mother. I'm the worst. I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to amount to anything. I'm always going to be a failure. And that's where I think the toxicity starts from within. That it starts within us long before it externalizes. And I think more of us struggle with internal toxicity that we don't even recognize as being toxic than even external toxicity.
And so what's the solution to that, Jennifer? I actually say that to my friends all the time, and I fight with myself. Should I do this or should I do that? And so what's the solution when you're fighting with yourself? How do you kind of resolve the fight, the internal war?
I'd start with asking my favorite question, which is why. So when I catch myself with a certain thought or a certain belief, I always ask myself, why do I have this? Where is it coming from? And is it coming from the situation that I'm in? And is this realistic? Is it based in truth? Or is it based in the past? That's the first thing, because it's one thing if you failed every math test and you just keep trying and you're trying to pass one math test. So yeah, you can be worried, I may not pass this exam. That's a realistic worry. When You walk into an exam, you're a straight A student, and you have this belief, I'm going to fail this test. That is not a belief or thought that's based in any kind of reality. So the first thing I ask is always, why? Why do I have this thought? And then where is it coming from?
Michelle, anything you want to add to how people can deal with their internal wars?
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of a favorite question. And as Jennifer was talking about that, I was like, what is my favorite question? And probably the question that I ask myself most, and my children and my patients, is because people want to come in blaming. I'm a blamer. Brene Brown talks about this, and there's a really cute animated video on her website about this. But whenever you blame someone else, you're giving away your own power. So what is your part? What is my part in this? What can I do differently? And what am I bringing to this situation?
Now,
Let's talk about truth. You know, we talk all the time about truth. Speak your truth. Know your truth. But a lot of times our truth isn't actually grounded in truth. When I believe I'm going to fail at something, I've never really failed like scholastically. And so that's not grounded in truth. And so a lot of the fears that I have are not grounded in truth. So speak your truth and know your truth, but you have to be true. So the first thing that I do is I ask myself when I have this thought, or I'll ask a patient of mine who comes in with this thought, is this actually a true thought?
Yeah.
Then if not, where is this coming from?
And where do these thoughts come from? Do they come from our childhood? Where do they come from?
I think it's so important. Jennifer and I were talking about this before, because it's part of the human experience to have. I suspect that there's neural programming to have a voice in your head. And actually, some people believe that the early humans thought that they maybe were they experienced thoughts as voices. So it really is like this voice in your head, and it's probably very primitive, telling you, look out for that, or when did this happen? And why are the voices so negative? Because the default voice in the head is a negative one for every human being on this planet who hasn't spent decades working it out. That's my experience, all the way down to children, at the youngest child that's ever come in my office. So there must be some survival advantage to that. But the thought is probably trying to protect you in some way. And it has latched on in our modern world to silly things like math tests, when really it's you need to get out of this situation because you're not going to be safe. But what we're really vulnerable to, the pain of human interaction and how other people hurt us or we disappoint someone. And then this thought thing starts going, and now you have thoughts going up that I'm going to fail, or I'm not good enough, or who do I think I am to do a podcast?
And when you talk about contentious divorces, or Jennifer, there's a lot of contentious relationships, and yes, you know, it's great to move away, but sometimes there's children involved. There's things that some people just kind of have to live through the toxic people that are surrounding them as a spouse. So what advice do you have for people that are, you know, have a toxic spouse?
Well, it depends how toxic it is, because the first thing you have to think about is safety and your relationships with other people. And if you have a family and you are a parent and you have children and your toxic relationship is actually creating an environment that isn't safe, you have to prioritize the safety of yourself and the safety of your children. And so logistics aside, you have to put their safety first. That's a number one. And so the first thing I do with my patients is come up with a safety plan. And if you are ever unsafe, you need to have a plan. And where's that going to be? How are you going to leave? Where are you going to go? Who's going to help you? How do we set this up? Because the safety is the number one. If we're talking about toxic relationships that maybe don't have that physical safety, we're talking more emotional. We're talking about manipulation. We're talking about, you know, verbal or kind of emotional abuse. You know, you still want to think about the safety, but then it becomes with, well, kind of how do you deal with this? And how do you have like the healthy boundaries with that? There isn't an easy answer. And my book is actually not about saving marriages. It's like, what do you do when your marriage is just blown up, and how do you move past that? When I do counseling with couples, you really have to have two people who are engaged in that process. So when we're talking about these toxic relationships, when you have a toxic relationship with the other person, ideally both people are working on it. I think the key is when you can't get the other person to engage. If I'm the only one in the room, the other one's not coming into therapy with me, I'm the only one in here. What are the things that I can be doing? So what am I contributing to the toxicity? What can I be doing to deal with the toxicity? And starting with yourself if you can't get the other person to participate. That can start changing the dynamic in a relationship, and I think it's important to try that. But ultimately, both parties, both people in this relationship need to contribute to the health of it, or it isn't going to be successful.
And we just have like 4 minutes left, but Michelle, another type of toxic relationship, especially now during the holiday season, is relatives that are toxic, either brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts. So what's the advice for toxic family?
Well, I think that one of the things that you can do is think about who are the not toxic people, right? Who are you going to spend time with? How can you create a situation? I love the children's book, Harold and the Purple Crayon, because it's this toddler who walks around with the crayon creating his future. And then he makes some mistakes and he has to come up with solutions to that. But we are like that as well. We can be if we're conscious and aware. So how do you want your Thanksgiving to go? Who can you imagine spending time with that you can smile with? Because what people do is they spend the entire week fretting about the person that they least want to spend time with, instead of identifying the 3 people that they might have a fantastic conversation with.
And that's great advice. And before we wrap this all up, there's one other toxic group, and that's toxic office workers and people. So thoughts on how to deal with toxic people in the office?
That's the worst. I've had that before, and I was with one job and I had a 2-year contract. And a week after I joined in, I realized I was walking down the hallway and there was a therapist walking toward me who just started yelling out the F word. And I thought, what did I sign up for? And I was actually trapped for 2 years. We could do an entire episode, I think, on dealing with the workplace. I think the important thing is to decide, what kind of attitude do I want to have? What kind of person do I want to be? What kind of vibe do I want to get off? And the more you give off your positive vibe, that can be just as contagious as someone else's negative vibe. It can create a ripple effect. And so if I'm in the middle of negativity, I want my ripple effect to be something more positive. I'm going to stand out. People are going to like that. And then you're going to slowly start seeing people on the fringe starting to change their attitudes.
Michelle, what about you? Your thoughts on toxic office colleagues?
I would say that talking about something before you understand it is overrated. So going in and saying to somebody, I need you to change this behavior, I need you to stop swearing because you're wrong, is not a great way to go about something, as opposed to what Jen said, where it's my favorite question, what's my part here? What can I do differently to try and change this without having to accuse someone else or blame someone else for a situation that I don't like?
Okay, so we are at the almost 20-minute mark. That's a good idea, Jennifer. Next topic could be about a whole toxic office, how to deal with it. So for today, we'll tell our listeners to email us at loveflowersnu@gmail.com or call 404-520-2373 and give us their suggestions for our next topic.
Good night, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Jennifer.
Bye.
Okay, so.
And how.
Part of the point. We need to prepare a little bit, but I personally, I I wanted to do this today so that we could see how it goes. I love having Marina moderate the discussion.
Yeah, that's great. It's
that
great.
Takes off so much, I think, prep work, because she's so natural at it. And I think it's fantastic the way I love the flow. And you just can't know what the flow is until you start doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we can simplify, and we can come up with a topic, and we can each have like 3 key points we'd want to talk about. Marina can send us a list of questions so we have an idea, but we don't want to over prepare. We just want to be organic.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's often when I'm doing interviews live. I mean, I just, I have an idea of what the topic's about, but as far as questions, it's like, depends what you say. The question, like a good host is listening to what you say, and the question comes out of your answer. So whatever that kind of just, whatever you say kind of brings the next question. So in general, I mean, we say this is the topic, and these are the these are the things we want to discuss. But sometimes, questions just kind of come up, and you want to answer the question that is going to come up even in the listener's head when they're listening.
Yeah, I love the way it flowed. I loved having you moderate, and I think Jennifer and I will get used to having, saying our thing and then letting you decide where we're going next.
Well, I
so
kind of
coming back to us.
Yeah, exactly. To kind of take turns, unless, but you guys, feel free if you have a point, say, hey, I want to make this point. And it's good because for me, I can listen to what you're saying and put it together. It kind of comes together. And then you'll see the time that you guys will also be just, comfortable. More, I know it's kind of stressful sometimes to be recording, but you're going to get really comfortable with it.
We just have to get used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So next week is the day after Thanksgiving. Are we going to try to? I'm going to have like family. I don't know if I can.
Okay, then then we could do it for the next Friday. That's fine.
And then should we prepare maybe 2 topics? We can think about maybe doing trying to record 2 podcasts.
That's a good idea. We'll do 2 topics.
And what should we wear? Formal evening gowns or ponchos or raincoat? I mean,
I'm going to go get a hat. I think I need a hat. I need a fascinator, like a British fascinator that has like feathers.
3. I might have one in this room probably somewhere.
Maybe it's in the wagon.
It's not, yeah. I know I have one in this room.
For me.
Okay, I was worried that it was going to be too serious. I don't think it felt too serious.
Okay, good. Okay.
I do want to have some fun.
Okay, good.
Along
but
the
I want to listen to what we did today, and I don't know how that's possible, Marina, for us to get like an audio copy so we can listen to it.
I can put it into a file. I can actually put it into a link which shows even the video. But
no.
But I could also
don't do that to her. She's gonna think you're gonna use it against her.
No, you're seeing it anyway. No, okay, but I can send you a file.
That'd be great, because then we can listen to ourselves. We can think about, how we sound, if we too much, what we just need it as a learning piece, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what today was about. I'm just thrilled that we figured out the technology. Like
we got so much done today.
Exactly.
So much.
I was stressed all week about the technology. Like, how do we get this all done? I know people do it, so it's doable, but are we going to figure it out? So.
Yeah, we might figure out that we need microphones too.
Yes, we'll have to see. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's why I want to listen to it.
Yeah, microphones you can attach a microphone to your computer quite easily.
Yeah, and if we have headsets with fascinators or without, then our computers aren't giving you feedback. That's what we'll hear in the playback.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, we could try that. We can try headsets for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I need to go spend $100 if it sounds great.
Yeah,
we can do that after we have listeners.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea.
We'd like to thank our one listener, who's my mom, for tuning in.
The headphones.
Our 3 listeners, my mom.
They'll become a lot of fun when we get questions from people. That'll when we have topics that people want to discuss. It's
Yes.
Well, I like the idea that things will pop up for you. Maybe there might be, we can do in real time, there will be questions that pop up, although, that might be just the last 5 minutes or something. You'll have selected your favorite question from all the questions that came in or something like that.
So where do you get that we get questions from people? Like, where do you get that we're going to get questions popping up on the screen?
I think when we start doing a podcast in real time.
Okay.
Oh, are we going to do that?
Thought bubble. No, we don't have to.
Are we going to do that?
No,
I love this. I really think it's a great thing. Like,
You can't have thought bubbles in real time. Those have to be planned out.
yeah, no, that's the edited version, because then it's like after the fact we debrief and it was like, okay, what was your thought bubble? Well, when you said this, I went, are we going to do that? Yeah.
We're going to start walking. We're going to start first just taping it. When you're really, when Jennifer is very comfortable, that's when we'll do live.
When Jennifer has makeup on and has washed her hair, we'll think about doing video.
Well, you go, Michelle, where are you going to dinner?
I'm just going to like a local place with my my toxic in-laws and my children.
Wow.
I'm ready now because I'm thinking about who I want to spend time with.
That's very good. That's very good advice. That is very good advice. And see, I have a very toxic work environment. And, I'm always fighting with myself. I think I should leave my job because people are toxic. But then it's like, so it's not as easy. It's not as easily done as it is said.
For sure.
That's what people always find.
Nothing is.
Yeah. Because I love my work. I just hate the people around me. So do you leave your work? Or do you just learn to deal with the people?
Do you hate all the people around you?
No, not all the people. No, just the two managers. The two managers are idiots. But everyone.
I felt that way about my manager in Chicago, but she recently came through for me in a massive way. Like, a patient wrote a horrible review of me online, and when I found it, I went to her and I said, she's seeing Dr. Philaday still. And I don't want this review online, but I also don't think it's the right thing for the patient, because this is not a good way to learn how to communicate. And she's borderline to level 10 out of 10. Staying open and giving it time and noticing when something happens that you don't mind or that you do like, anything can change.
Noticing what you do like. Yeah. And that's like the other day I did a story on, this woman who had a child who was very sick. And I thought, this is what I like. I like the power. I like the fact that I'm going to be able to do a piece on podcasts and interview you guys. I like the power to give good news to the world. But it's just difficult with the obnoxious people. But anyway, off to dinner for you. Jennifer, what are you up to?
I don't know. The sun hasn't set yet here in California.
Okay. Well, have a great evening, and we'll see you, I guess, 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, we'll text in the meantime.
Okay,
Thanks for everything.
And I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, sweetie. Bye.